Hello and welcome back to the Eyes of O Gaming channel for another game review. And today we're taking a look at a third-person sci-fi RPG. And so what game is that? Well, we're talking about The Surge, a game that was published by Focus Entertainment and developed by Deck 13, releasing in 2017. Deck 13 also developed The Surge 2, the sequel to this game, as well as Lords of the Fallen, which we've actually already taken a look at, though it was quite a while ago at this point. Remember to stay to the end of the video to get my own opinion and whether or not I would recommend this game to a friend. But first, let's dive into The Surge and see how it holds up today, looking at everything in as objective a way as we can, so I can hopefully help you decide the most important thing we ask on the channel: is this still worth it for you? Let's get into it. Alright, so exactly what kind of game are we getting into here? Well, The Surge is taking place sometime in the future, with this one being a dystopian sci-fi setting. Basically, the world's resources have been pretty well completely drained, and so this ends up leading to a buckling social service issue, as well as the obvious environmental collapse and diseases that come with that. Essentially, what the devs were going for here was a futuristic dystopia where tech and development outpaces the ability to keep up with environmental sustainability and human social issues. In this rather grim setting, the player will take control of Warren, who is a new employee on his first day of work at Creo, which Creo is one of the tech corporations which controls the planet in this tech bro dystopia. Warren is introduced to the player in a wheelchair, but upon reaching Creo, the player is given a choice of which starting robotic rig they want Warren to be outfitted with. This might feel a little bit spoilery, so soft warning here, but it does happen in the first 10 minutes of the game, so I'm not too worried about telling you. Basically, the surgery for implanting the new exoskeleton goes wrong, and Warren wakes up in what looks like a junkyard, but is the ruins of what's left of the facility. From there, the player is going to have to explore, fight, meet NPCs, upgrade Warren's gear, and try to figure out what exactly is going on and what went so wrong. So to begin with, we can look at the other game that I mentioned by the same developers, and that's Lords of the Fallen. These games are both going to have a very similar playstyle, though of course we do have a different type of setting, where Lords of the Fallen was more of a dark fantasy. The Surge is set in a futuristic dystopia. Although the settings are different, they both follow a Souls-like combat system with stamina, dodge mechanics, and there can be a difficulty curve for players to overcome. Something that I also found similar between them is the melee combat tends to have a weighty animation when doing attacks. So aside from a game by the same devs, we can also look at the Dark Souls series, because, well, it's a Souls-like game, so obviously we've got similarity. Just think of your standard Souls-like game mechanics and you'll have an idea of what to expect. We have the checkpoint areas that respawn enemies. This is going to be similar to bonfires in Dark Souls. And really the overall style of the game is just very similar, but in a sci-fi setting. So like I mentioned previously, The Surge is a third-person Souls-like action RPG. In terms of gameplay mechanics, we have targeted limb damage, which is actually a very important mechanic to the game. You've got an exoskeleton suit that you'll be using, and in order to get specific upgrades for limbs or areas of the suit, you're going to need to target those same areas on enemies when in combat in order to get them for yourself. So basically, the ability to target certain areas becomes pretty crucial for first getting blueprints to make the upgraded armor, and then also collecting the materials for construction of it. You can also use the targeting system in order to target unarmored areas on enemies, as they're going to be weak points. This is typically all going to be followed up with a dismemberment action camera. As with a lot of these types of games, we have stamina-based combat. Everything, attacks, dodges, blocks, sprinting, it's all going to be using stamina to perform. You can use upgrades from modifications, so that can be used for things like increasing the stamina bar that I was talking about. You're also going to unlock a drone, which can be equipped with different styles of combat upgrades depending on what you prefer, and will be used to unlock different areas as you progress and get standard upgrades for it. As I briefly mentioned, there is a crafting system, and this is going to be very important to surviving and being able to complete the entire game. Basically, as you make progress through the main campaign, You're going to unlock better equipment and upgrades for existing equipment, and you'll need to do this in order to have a chance to get stronger and stronger enemies as you go. You'll also find implants as you go, and these can be used to modify Warren directly, and this will do a number of different things. So I said before, you could use this to increase your stamina bar, or maybe increasing your health bar, or damage output, or even some other active upgrades like giving you a health regeneration with a button press. There's going to be a bunch of these different implants to explore and try out as you play through, so I'm not going to list everything here. Different weapon types are also going to feel pretty different and give a totally unique style of approaching enemies and boss fights. My advice is to just play around with them and see what suits you, and then go hard on that, customizing your implants and armor type to best support your weapon and combat style. A few other things to mention: basically your core power is what's going to limit your mods, and that's essentially how you level up. It's also how you're going to unlock certain areas of the map, so you'll need to be investing in your core power. Staggered around each zone, you're going to find a med bay, which is your save point and where you can level up your core power. As you play through and defeat enemies, you're going to find tech scrap, which you trade in at the med bay to level up your core power. The more tech scrap you're carrying around with you, the more you'll get when you defeat enemies. But if you get killed, you're going to drop all that scrap. So to play it safer, when you go to a med bay, if you don't have enough scrap to actually level up your core power, you can instead bank it there as well. So regarding this risk-reward mechanic of the tech scrap, you'll just have to basically find the balance that works for you when storing or carrying it.
Have a nice day, Warren.
Graphics seem to be holding up really well in my opinion. The colors pop, which is something that I always like to see in games. There's not going to be a ton of different locations though. Most of it is sci-fi facility, so you're going to get used to a lot of seeing the same thing over and over. Enemies are going to be outfitted differently, but honestly for the common enemies, I didn't really notice too much of a difference between them either. Basically anything that's walking around in a suit like you is an enemy, so it keeps encounters pretty simple. With all that said, there are a few unique looking enemies to deal with, and your typical boss fights in a Souls-like game. As usual, just use the gameplay footage in the video to see if it all works for you. Okay, so starting with performance and bugs, I thought it all worked pretty well. I didn't run into any major performance issues while playing through, and there was no game-breaking bugs. As for the unique aspects, the sci-fi dystopia is an interesting setting for a Souls-like game, where most of the genre are going for more of a fantasy world. The limb targeting system, which is crucial for getting those upgrades, is also fairly unique. You'll need to make sure to target and then remove those limbs or target certain areas in order to get the blueprint drops, and then you'll need to keep grinding away at those limbs in order to get the gear for crafting. The exo rig or exosuit you wear is actually pretty customizable with different upgrade options and what you choose for combat. You can go heavy or light, or one-handed, two-handed. There's quite a bit of different option here. Lastly, the implants that you find are actually going to allow for a fair amount of customization of how your character plays. Really, overall, the game gives you a lot of freedom with how you're building your version of Warren to go into battle, and it's definitely a nice feature to have in a game like this. I thought that the sound was pretty good and voice acting was well done. I'm just going to play some examples for you though, so that you can make up your own mind on this.
We've had issues with Robert Weave again, this time about the exoskeleton program. He's refused to have the implant surgery.
If you believe you can move mountains, Creo has the job for you. Because as a heavy operator, you can literally do that. Pure power, relentless performance. Nothing can hold you back.
Seems you've got a screw loose somewhere.
Thanks for your concern. Error. No loose screws found.
So we've gone through the analysis of the game, so we kind of have an idea of what we're looking at, and I hope that I've helped you to answer the question of whether or not it's worth it for you to give it a try. So now I'm just going to get into my own opinion as to whether or not I enjoyed the game, and if I'd recommend it to one of my friends. Keep in mind that not every game is going to be for everyone, so whether or not I liked it, it doesn't mean that you're going to or not. You should use the first part of the review to see if it's right for you. Also, my philosophy with this channel is that number ratings are completely meaningless. It's subjective media. Some people are going to love it, some people are going to hate it. There's no way to quantitatively rate these kind of things. So don't get frustrated when I don't give it a certain number of stars or whatever other goofy rating that people use. Okay, so the final question that we're going to ask: did I enjoy The Surge, and would I recommend it to a friend? It was okay. I'd say not great, not terrible. I'm going to have a bit of a biased opinion here because personally I'm not a huge fan of Souls-like games in the first place. So I wasn't too sure about this one coming in, but even though I've seen some people online say that this is a very hard game, I would rate my skills as pretty mediocre, and I found the game to be fairly easy. There was maybe 2 spots in the game where I got stuck for a bit, but I just went around the zones and grinded for a level or 2. Nothing major, and then I was able to progress with no real problems. As long as you intelligently build your character and your offense and defense are chosen to best complement each other, I really don't think this is going to be too difficult as people are making it out to be. As usual with any Souls-like game, bosses can be a little bit of a challenge, but also with any Souls-like game, they really aren't that challenging. All it is just a matter of learning the pattern and exploiting their weaknesses. That's honestly why I'm not a huge fan of the genre in general though. I've never really been a big fan of boss fights in general. I tend to like in games when you're pitted against someone of equal or similar power and abilities, and you basically just go head to head in a duel. In those type of games, it actually leaves quite a bit of room for randomness or pseudo-randomness of the enemy NPCs. But in these games where they make the boss's attacks so OP that they end up needing to keep them to just using certain patterns of attack. All you have to do is be patient and learn those patterns, and then you just dance around the bosses and press a certain button when a particular action fires or when you anticipate that it's going to happen. As a result, at least to me, it all ends up feeling really mechanical instead of just a free-flowing adventure. All that said, I know for some people, they're really going to enjoy this style, and this game has it. Probably the most difficult part of the game, at least that I found, is that it's really not going to do any hand-holding for you. I've seen a lot of people complaining about it online about how the game doesn't teach you how to take on a boss or that it can be difficult to navigate zones. And yeah, that's true. But again, going back to it, these boss fights, they're not that hard. Just watch the patterns and exploit them. Once you figure out how the attacks are coming, it's really not too hard to get through. Navigation can be annoying as there isn't a map in the menu. There's going to be some maps scattered around in the facility, like the "You Are Here" style of map. And actually during my playthrough, I ended up screenshotting a map so that I could just refer back to it in a zone. But I also didn't really find this all that frustrating, and actually it's kind of nice to have a game that doesn't tell you exactly how to do everything with a tutorial. It's not one of those games that's going to explain in excruciating detail how everything happens. Of course, how players react to that is totally dependent on the player, so take that rant and decide for yourself if it's something that you'd be interested in or if it just sounds frustrating to you. And I know that I ranted too much about Souls-like, but just to go back to how the difficulty goes, I was able to complete the game, and I would say I'm a mediocre player who is also not a die-hard Souls-like fan. So if you're a fan of the genre, you really shouldn't have any difficulty with this one. So for recommendations, I'd recommend this to fans of the Souls-like genre with extra points if you really enjoy sci-fi or dystopian environments. So I hope you enjoyed this look at The Surge. So if you've already played through this game, let me know down in the comments if you agree or disagree with my own opinion on it. And if you found the video helpful or entertaining, please give it a like here to let me know, and consider subscribing to the channel. I post a variety of gaming content, not just reviews like this, but also walkthroughs and Let's Play, and I'd love to have you join the community and help direct the future of the channel. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch today, and until next time, take care.
ancient Greeks once said, "A society grows great when old men plant trees whose shade they know they shall never sit in." We tend to forget about this, tend to be careless. But we have to rise to the task together. It's up to all of us to sow those seeds, and it's up to us to nurture them towards growth. Creo is not just another company. With Project Resolve, we are building the path to the future. Follow us into a new era, a utopia for all mankind. With every launch, we're healing our planet, restoring its natural shield. A return to the green world we remember, where our children can once more play in the sun.